Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, and welcome to MindShifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, the Forgiveness Doctor. We have a new time beginning on Monday, and now today and tomorrow, of course, it's 1 o'clock. But beginning Monday, we're going to shift to 2 o'clock, from 2 to 3 Eastern Time. And on Tuesday, we're going to be doing 2 radio shows at one time. Michael, would you like to tell them a little bit about WWNN?
Sure. We just had an awesome opportunity open up, and as of Tuesday, we'll be starting a land-based show with a station here in South Florida that's in Boca Raton, and is a 50,000-watt land station that covers the whole southeast coast of Florida. So we're going to be on the radio on another level in a new way with WWNN AM 1470. And so every Tuesday, for those who are in South Florida, you'll be able to tap in, and we'll actually be running the shows concurrently. So that's why we're changing the time, because our time slot on WNN is from 2 to 3. So we'll be running the shows concurrently, and every day starting next week, instead of a 1 until 2 o'clock time frame, we'll be doing 2 to 3 Eastern Time. So that's going to be 5 days a week, Eastern Time. And then on Tuesday, if you're on the landline or you're in your car, you don't have to call in. You'll be able to just tap into WWNN Radio. And actually, if you want to tap in tomorrow to WWNN, and I don't have the login information yet, but you can you can go online to, if you Google Rockers in Recovery or Holistic Radio Network, you'll be able to listen to it streaming live on Holistic Radio Network as well, the WWNN show 1470 AM every Tuesday from 2 until 3 o'clock. So things are happening in terms of expanding the work and more people tapping in. And tomorrow we're going to be doing another interview. It'll actually be our third interview in the week on WWNN. It seems that the recovery community is really tapping into our message on a new level, which is pretty exciting for us. And so we will be doing an interview tomorrow with another interviewer and an attorney who works primarily with family law. So we're going to talk about resolving conflicts when it comes to family situations. How do you create, if somebody's going to divorce, how do you create a peaceful divorce? How do you create a divorce where the kids don't have to pay all their lives? And so that'll be our conversation tomorrow from 2 until 3 o'clock on WWNN 1470 AM for those who are in South Florida. If you look at Holistic Lifestyles Radio Network, you can tap in, or actually we'll have a link. I'm not sure we've got one yet, but we'll put a link on whyagain.com. So you'll be able to go to www.whyagain.com tomorrow, click on a link for WWNN radio interview, and 2 until 3 o'clock tomorrow, we'll be doing that show on resolving family conflicts and working with a family-friendly attorney from up in Boca Raton. That should be an interesting and exciting show. We're looking forward to how all of this is going to unfold and the new direction the work is moving. We're actually, one of the other exciting things that we're working toward is a movie. And for those who've been doing a significant amount of the work, you might remember the definition of the suffix OOTA, O-O-T-A. And the OOTA suffix is a suffix that you add to a word to denote that the mindset reflected by that word is controlling perception and behavior from the dissociated part of the mind, from the unconscious part of the mind. Following in the line that when we deny, we go into a dissociated state, and whatever's stored in that dissociated state is not changeable as long as we maintain that dissociated state. As long as we remain in denial, that remains hidden. And so OOTA is the Aramaic word that indicates that that's what's controlling perception and behavior.
And so the title of the new movie is going to be OOTA, The Healing of an Unmanageable Life. And we're going to be looking at taking the tools on another level into the movie theaters, and we're looking to create a blockbuster, wide-open, full-blown movie that will just move globally as we bring in the science, the ancient Aramaic psychology, the Aramaic language, and the original Aramaic teachings on forgiveness. So it's exciting to watch how that's getting ready to move to the next level. And everything appears to be getting ready to move to the next level. So we're excited and delighted. So are there any calls, Jeanie, or any thoughts you have in your mind?
No, everybody's just sitting out there listening so far. If we have any questions, call-in number is 646-200-4169. And one of the things that I woke up with this morning, maybe you can add onto this or elaborate on it, was the different filters in the mind, that there are 3 filters over perception and 3 filters over intentions, and what the difference is between intentions and goals. So I don't know if that's something maybe that you would like to comment on.
Well, that's definitely a powerful part in the process of healing, is to recognize how this device that we call the body's mind, which really isn't the mind at all, it's really more of a database, and it's not capable of thinking. It's the great pretender. It pretends by giving us realities, behaviors, advice from the past that probably didn't work for the previous generation that used that advice and probably won't work for you, but it pretends that it has the answers. It's nothing but a base of information that, when it's called upon, tends to formulate what's called thinking. I use a simple example of, don't think about the color of your car. And, of course, most everybody in the audience says, when I say, well, now what's happening? They say, well, I'm thinking about the color of my car. And I would offer that you're not thinking about the color of your car at all. All that's happening is, with my voice, I set up a frequency that resonates brain cells containing the color of your car. And those brain cells fire. And when those brain cells fire, they provide you with information. Nothing to do with thinking. Nothing whatsoever to do with thinking. Thinking, I would offer, is the ability of a spiritual being who's awake, alive, aware, and functions out of a human life, which is love, and keeps that love present in their body's database, in their body's what appears to be mind, continuously. And as that happens, because love is present, everything that's unlike love starts to dissolve, starts to diminish, starts to disappear, which is one of the reasons why the world strives to keep people in hostility or fear, because when hostility or fear is running the show, then love doesn't have the opportunity to dissolve the insanities that have gone on for 1,000 generations on the earth. If you look at that question that the Creator asks of Satan way back in the book of Job and says, Satan, from whence come you? And Satan says, from going to and fro upon the earth, from going back and forth upon it. And this must be an important question. And Satan, by the way, in Aramaic is a lowercase letter. It's not the uppercase Satan that the Greeks have given us. There's no such relationship between those two. It's a lowercase word. And it's a very clear definition, if you go back into the book of Job, what Satan is. And what it says is, to and fro, back and forth upon the earth. Both times the question's asked, the answer is identical. What is to and fro, back and forth? It's nothing but a statement of our past. And when you recognize that, then if the past runs you, then you're the dead buried by the dead, the blind led by the blind. The idea of forgiveness is to undo that past stored in brain cells that presents itself as the great pretender, thinking. No thinking at all is happening when information from the past is simply firing in brain cells. All that's happening is information's firing in brain cells. When we awaken spiritually, we become a thinker. So the presence of love denotes thinking. The absence of love denotes no thinking. It simply denotes reaction. Now, this reactive device that we're referring to as the body's mind, that isn't a mind at all, it's a pretender, that device operates through a filtering system. And if you understand the filtering system, you have an opportunity to take very deep levels of charge of the device. If you don't know how the filtering system works, then it's pretty difficult to take charge of the device. In fact, next to impossible. And what happens is we're run by the device. And in the ancient teachings, that was called being a master bound by the servants in your own household. Your household, your temple, is your energy field, your so-called body. Not a physical thing, an energetic device. And that's your home. And your home has certain rules that it follows in order to operate. And Jeannie's question about the filters is key to how this body's database operates and gives us information. In fact, if you look at the question that was asked in the ancient Aramaic about what they said was the first law, and we hear it being said that we're supposed to love our neighbor, we're supposed to love the Creator, we're supposed to love ourselves. But interestingly enough, in Aramaic, it's not what it says. The word that was used in Aramaic when they said love God, neighbor, and self was the word Rakhma, one of 17 different words translated by one English word, love. It might be important to know what word was used and what it meant. So the word Rakhma refers to a filter, one of the filters Jeanie was just asking about, a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain. So this thing called Rakhma is the filter that allows your mind to only use data that is keyed to love as the raw material of your goals. There's a strong movement afoot to try and give an unwarranted power to intentions. And my favorite saying about intentions is that an intention can no more cause a behavior than a shadow can carry a stone. Can't happen. That's why the ancients, who understood, said the road to hell was paved with good intentions, because we can have all the good intentions in the world, but until we pull those intentions out of the frontal lobes of the brain, filter them through a filter, and then use them to form a goal, we will not be able to do a behavior based on those intentions. So Rakhma speaks about a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain that allows the brain to only use intentions that are keyed to love in forming its goals. And according to the man named Yeshua 2,000 years ago, that was the first law. That was what was first and most important, was to have that filter set. And if that filter's set, then all of your intentions are loving. And that means that the way that this database works, this so-called body's mind works, is that the data that comes forward through the frontal lobes of the brain will show us loving intentions. And when those loving intentions are active, then out of that pool of intentions, we select something to commit to. Once we commit to it, our intention becomes a goal. Now, that goal's purpose is to cause the mind, out of its store of information, to feed us the best information it has resonated by that goal. What's the best direction that mind can take? What's the best information it has based upon the goal to come up with a behavior that will then become what tends to cause us to carry out some form of action in the world? So, intention, raw material, commit to it, it's now a goal. Now, loading that goal in the mind will cause the mind to go to work. If you've ever had a problem with a chattering mind, your mind just never shuts up. Gee, I try to meditate, or I go to bed at night, and if I don't go to bed exhausted, my mind just runs and runs and runs, and I lay there for hours listening to all this chatter, then what you want to do is get on our website and order the DVD, Getting the Stress You Need, because it will show you exactly the functioning purpose of stress and exactly how to get the chatterbox to shut up. We have all kinds of people who've never had a minute's peace from their minds. Once they get that DVD and start to work with the worksheet, which is called the Mind Goal Management Sheet, you can get it on the website free, whyagain.com. Then as you work with that worksheet, you'll get the chatterbox to shut up. You'll be able to get your mind to be quiet. And as you live with Rakhma as your first and primary filter for operation of your mind, then all of your behaviors will tend to come from a pool of perceptions, which are stored in the back of the brain, that relate to love. This is all Aramaic psychology. This comes out of the ancient Aramaic. And then the other two filters that are possible to use are those of hostility and fear. If hostility is active, then the quality of intentions you will get out of the frontal lobes, if that's the active filter, the intentions available will be limited to those that are destructive. If fear is the active filter, then the pool of intentions that will be active and available will be those keyed into negativity. So the three filters, Rakhma means loving intentions, hostility means destructive intentions, fear means negative intentions. If the pool of intentions is destructive or negative, then when one forms a goal based on those destructive or negative intentions, the part of the brain that's engaged that serves us behavior, that guides us as to what to do, are then similarly engaged. And as they are engaged, what happens is the mind, when hostility is the active filter, the mind can only feed you threatening realities. In other words, anything you look at will seem threatening. When we go to that's out of the fear filter. When we go to the hostility filter, the only realities the mind can feed us are those that are irritating. And so when they said, how do you tell where somebody's really at? The answer in those ancient teachings was, you look at their fruit. Part of your fruit is the output of your mind. Are you feeling threatened everywhere you look? Are you feeling irritated everywhere you look? Then you got the wrong filter engaged. You're in trouble. Your mind's going to keep using data based in threat and irritation. Shift to Rakhma, the threat and irritation disappears. It goes away. Now, people will go through experiences where they'll shift into love and they'll have this wonderful, loving time with their partner and everything will be awesome and they'll see everything that they love about their partner. But then, their partner will happen to turn their head the wrong way, or, they'll get a phone call from somebody that raises their stress level and activates the fear filter, activates the hostility filter. So 30 seconds ago, my partner was the most awesome, loving, beautiful creature in the world. Then when hostility is activated by something, either by that partner or by someone else, and we honor this one in our culture, we say, he got out of bed on the wrong side this morning. That means the hostility filter set. And so now the person who a moment ago was just so awesome and beautiful and loving and desirable and sweet and all those wonderful things, suddenly becomes the source of irritation. Why is it every word you say now is irritating me? And so we put outside of us responsibility for what we're feeling inside because we haven't been taught how this filter system works. And as you begin to understand how the filter system works, you get to the point where you cherish Rakhma. There are a couple of communities in the United States that still speak Aramaic as their native language. And a couple of years back, we were out in Southern California presenting them with our manuscript, the community there. And we asked them what the word Rakhma meant. We had discovered in our laboratory, our classroom laboratory, that Rakhma was a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain. And this community shared with us that, although Aramaic was their native language, they had lost the meaning of the word Rakhma. They didn't know what it was. However, their tradition said that it was the most precious jewel that you could have. And I'd offer they're right. That's why Yeshua gave it the standing as the first law, and that's why the community of Aramaic-speaking people says it's the most precious jewel, because it is. If you have that filter set continuously, if you develop the discipline and the expertise of doing that, everything you look at will change in its nature and character. So, Jeanie, does that address the root of what you awakened with and were thinking about this morning, or is there more refinement that you'd like to get into, or do you have any thoughts to add to it?
No, I think that takes care of it. So how does this tie in, like, okay, so the goals, we have intentions, we set intentions, we turn them into goals, and the goals move our behavior, and so then depending on which filter is set, our behavior is either off the mark or it's on target. And so if it's off, then that's when we cancel the goal and reset a new goal to have a different behavior.
Right. That's where the forgiveness process comes in. Yes. And where the forgiveness process from the Aramaic removes the stresses that tend to keep us locked into places that we'd rather not live. And, most people would rather live in their original nature, and everybody agrees the original nature of the newborn is love. There's no question anywhere on the planet. Everybody describes the essence of the newborn as love. And the reason for that is because that's our essential nature. That's the stuff we're made of. And, why live anywhere else? And Rakhma is the key. Again, that's why Yeshua said, when he was speaking to we humans, the most important law was to keep Rakhma active, to keep love active, 24/7, 365, no matter what anybody else is doing. What they're doing is their problem. What you're doing is your challenge. And, of course, most of the world doesn't like it when you are in Rakhma, because all of a sudden you're not very controllable. What we call the choice body, this filter Rakhma is also a gateway for the entry of human life into a so-called human body. A human body does not contain a human life until it contains the active presence of love. There is no human life in someone who's functioning out of hostility and fear all the time. They don't get a visit from a human life, which, of course, is a painful place to be. And so when we awaken to who we are, we live a human life, and in that human life, we live lovingly. We experience ourselves lovingly. We experience the people around us as loving. And those that aren't, we see, you have a problem. You are not my problem. I choose to keep love present. I choose to function out of Rakhma. And most of the world would prefer you don't, because the alternative to that love is, one, to remove the choice body. Our original created essence, love, I would offer, is our choice body. It's been called spiritual. It just means of another level of energy. So we know that there are FM radio waves. We know there are AM radio waves. We know that there are, cosmic rays. We know there are all levels of frequency. Well, your essential nature, your created essence, is love, and when your physiology is a vehicle for that, you get to experience yourself as that. Another question that Jeanie will ask people at the beginning of the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop regularly is, how many have ever done something they regret? And, of course, people do a grin and put their hand up. And we ask people, go back to a time when you did something that you regret, and tell us what you were feeling that motivated you to do whatever that behavior was. 100% of the time, in 100% of the cultures, just like the answer to the newborn is always love, 100% of the time in 100% of the cultures, the answer to why people did what they regretted, to what they were feeling when they did that, was always some form of hostility or fear. Hostility or fear. Oh, yes, right, the other two filters. And so when those other two filters are active, our mind feeds us hostile, fearful information. It feeds us threat. It feeds us irritation. And, of course, when we're in threat and irritation, our perceptual acuity is reduced. It defiles perception. Hostility and fear defile perception. Again, go back to the brilliance of that first commandment that Yeshua said, here's what I tell you is number one. You keep Rakhma in your mind when you think of the Creator, when you think of neighbor, when you think of self. If you do that, you've just inoculated yourself against hostility and fear. And the hostility, fear-based mind is always stupid. It always does behaviors that later it regrets because it comes out of a sleep state. So what we're looking to do is to provide people with the tools to come out of hostility and fear, which in the ancient teachings was called come out of Egypt, into a human life, into the presence of love.
Awesome. And we have Nene on the line. Nene.
Oh, hi, Nene. How are you?
Hello. Fine. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's a delight to hear from you. How go your worksheets?
Thank you. It's been wonderful. I keep doing 4 or 5 a day after my 40-day first
Right.
period of exercises, and continuing with in the same mode of keeping the love active and present. I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. Usually when the children are watching TV and we have all this information about violence and, all these shows, how could we teach them to keep love present so they are not affected by the subliminal message?
Turn the television off. Turn the television off.
What if they're not
Turn
in
the television
school?
off. What's that?
What if they're in the school?
I'm not sure what you mean. What is there in the schools?
Okay. Yeah, like, for instance, in Venezuela right now, in the schools, with the new system, they turn the TV on and they show all this army things and violence, and they play the national song. So it's like, the children start watching that being nationalistic means to be at war.
So I have a suggestion.
Uh-huh.
Take your children out of the schools. Oh, wait a minute. No, you can't do that. Well, excuse me, you can do that.
No.
And maybe it's time for we humans to start to wake up to who we are. Massive public education started in Prussia. And the Prussians learned that if they got a hold of those kids early, and of course they told everybody this wonderful story about how great this public education system was going to be.
Uh-huh.
And what they found was if they got them early and got them in that public system, they put them all, massed them all together, they had great soldiers. They had killers left, right, and center. They had no problem. They had an unending supply. And if you choose to opt out, it's time to opt out. It's time to quit. It's time for enough people to wake up and say, maybe I'm not going to do this. And at least until the age of 13, keep the child under the tutelage or the teaching of the parents and the family. At the age of 13, there's a thing that happens to the speech system that solidifies and makes a person relatively impervious to the insanities of the culture. But because we haven't known how this whole system works, we've just bought into whatever some authority told us. Excuse me, no authority knows more about your children than you do. And if it's time to wake up and say, that's it, I'm not going to go into this mass indoctrination system, because education, if you look up the definition of the word educare, education, it comes from that root. It means to draw out. It does not mean to put in. And anything that just takes a child and puts information in is not an educational system. It is an indoctrination system. That's a whole different thing. If you could find an actual school that actually draws out the human being made of love into their own lives, you'd have an awesome system, and our world would transform in a minute. However, at this point, most people are controlled by the hostile and fearful minds that run governments, schools, and most of the world.
Yes, especially now in Venezuela with the new dictatorship. So this is a friend of ours that we're teaching the worksheets, and we introduced her to this program, and she loves it. So I guess she will have to continue to do that and probably teach their children. And meanwhile, because it's everywhere now in Venezuela, in the public schools, everywhere, this is what is the new style,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to note that the system, the whole game has been turned around so completely backward. You can teach a child. In fact, you could force a child in the so-called educational system to learn every atrocity that Hitler ever did, or Mussolini, or any of the South America. You can force them to learn that and learn the dates and learn the speeches and learn the ideas and learn how many were murdered. But you can't teach them about the guy that said love was the first law.
Yeah.
Interesting little brainwash, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so it's up to the parents. It's up to the parents then to step in, I believe, and take charge. Both of my children were totally homeschooled in the early years of their lives. When they turned 13, they had the choice to go to a school if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. And it's just time for us to wake up and see who we are and start to take charge of our lives.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. That's how it is, and I can't wait to go back to the series of the following week. So it's been wonderful.
Yeah, we're going to start a workshop series on March the 6th.
Okay.
On Sunday, March the 6th, we'll be at Unity in Pompano. We'll be doing their Sunday service at 11 o'clock, and then Why Is This Happening to Me Again from 2 to 5:30. And then Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Friday night, we'll be doing a workshop each night. And then we just decided that on Saturday and Sunday, we're going to do a 2-day mini-intensive. So Saturday and Sunday, I believe it's the 11th and 12th of
the
March,
12th and 13th.
We'll be doing. Is it the 12th and 13th, honey? Okay.
Yeah.
So
And on
the 12th
Sunday,
and
the
13th.
workshop is 1 to 4:30.
Oh, 1 to 4:30?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me. Thank you for having that flyer this week. Do you want to give us the titles, honey, of what we'll be doing Monday, Tuesday? I don't have a flyer in front of me.
Yep, sure will. Thank you, Nene, for calling in.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Bye-bye.
Yes, on Sunday, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, from 1 to 4:30. On Monday, March the 7th, we're going to do On Creating Consciously from 7 to 9:30. Each evening, it's from 7 to 9:30. So Tuesday is Healing Through Relationships. Wednesday is Codependence to Interdependence. Thursday is Communication. Did you hear what I think I said? And Friday is A Course in Miracles.
Cool. Introduction to Advanced Understanding of the Course in Miracles.
Exactly.
On Friday?
And,
awesome.
Yes. And then Saturday and Sunday would be the mini intensive. And we'll have a flyer out on the website shortly on that, so everybody can keep an eye on whyagain.com and then click on schedules. And Terry's on the line, but before we turn into whatever his questions are, there were a couple of comments coming when you were talking about homeschooling children or whatever. There were a couple of comments in the chat room about also, if, nowadays the parents, it seems like, we've gotten into the habit of both parents having to work and you either send them to school or you keep them with a sitter or something like that. So some alternatives could be educating them while they're in school so that they can spot the indoctrination. If a parent's involved enough in the children's lives while they're at home even, they can add to so that the child, just like I'm in school now and there's a lot of garbage in what college is putting out, and yet I'm being able to turn it into opportunities for me to share what I know with the professors, and so we can also do that. And so if you start a child young enough, I think that's it's not maybe the best. It's better if they are at home and being homeschooled, but at least spending time with your children so they understand the indoctrination that's going on.
Absolutely. And, Jeanie, I acknowledge you for the education that you're giving your professors at the university, because they're getting some new information they haven't seen before, and it's really cool to watch you putting it together and how dedicated you are to that. By the way, for those who haven't been on our website before, sometimes it's a little difficult to hear the actual title of the website, so it's Why, W-H-Y, Again, AGAIN.com, if you want to jump on that. And And sure, I mean, give children the tools, and they'll be able to handle that. But then I invite you to look on another level and look at what's really important in your life. If you've decided to have children, then, maybe all the toys and all the things that, I mean, it's interesting. We live in a culture today that, if you don't have the new car, if you don't have the 6,000 square foot house or 25,000 or 80,000 square foot house, if you don't have the $1 million bank account, then there's something wrong with you and you're not a successful family. Excuse me, I would offer that the 4-person or 5-person family that lives in a 1,200, 1,500 square foot bungalow that drives a car that's paid for. It's 10 years old, but it runs and it's paid for, and you're not having to work for the bank to do it, and that is satisfied, that grows a garden and has real, honest to God food, might be a whole lot more successful family than the one who's got all the toys and is so deep in debt that two people have to struggle just to make ends meet. Another perspective. But yeah, certainly give the tools to the children. We've had children as young as 4 years of age successfully using the forgiveness process we teach, the reality management worksheet from Why Is This Happening to Me Again?
Yeah. And one other thing, and then we'll get to Terry's question. And Terry, you're already on, by the way, is speaking of children and getting these tools, we now have a family from England that's going to come over and spend 3 months this summer and bring 2 of their children who are 6 and 11. And then we have another family.
Have we gotten confirmation? Have we gotten confirmation from them, Jeanie?
I don't have their final dates, no. But and then we talked to a family last night who 3 generations want to come this summer and do at least 40 days. And that's a father and his son and then his son's daughter. And so that'll be awesome this summer to have children 5, 6, and 11 doing the work at Heartland. And Terry, you're on the air.
Good morning, Terry. If anybody who hasn't met Terry yet, who hasn't been on the show yet, Terry is our artist in residence at Heartland and our project coordinator, contractor, builder, developer of land, and awesome homes for people to come and be part of a conscious community. Good morning, Terry. Actually, I guess it's afternoon already, isn't it? It's morning where you are.
And most importantly, one of the titles I can add to my list there is that I'm learning and growing and becoming a teacher of this work. That's the one that I think goes at the top of the list now.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, Terry taught his first 2 Why Is This Happening to Me Again, or I guess it was 1, Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, and in Asheville, North Carolina, coming up. What dates, Terry?
The 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th.
15, 16, 17, and 18, you're going to be doing a series of workshops in Asheville, North Carolina. Where will they be, Terry?
They'll be at the Appalachia School of Herbal and Holistic Studies. Awesome.
And what workshops are you doing? I know you're doing Why Is This Happening to Me Again. What are the others?
Getting the stress you need, healing through relationships, and then there'll be a breath workshop this Saturday following those 3 workshops.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I acknowledge you for stepping out there, Terry, and putting it together and serving people with forgiveness. That's just fabulous.
Yep, and it certainly has. I have benefited tremendously from engaging in the teachings here at that level.
I hear you. I understand.
All right. I had a question and a comment. Question.
Okay, why don't you give your comment first?
Okay. Well, let me give the question first because it's similar. Is the diagram of the filters on the website?
We'd have to ask Jeanie that. I don't know.
Okay, you can get back to me on that.
Is the picture diagram, Jeanie? Do you know? If it's not, knowing Jeanie, it will probably be on the website within minutes or within hours.
Okay, great. And then
we'll put it under download worksheets. For anybody that wants to get the diagram of the filters that we were just talking about, we've got a pictorial of that goes with our Getting the Stress You Need video. we'll put that under download worksheets if it's not there already. Jeanie, are you there? She must be having trouble with the
I'm
phone.
sitting here talking.
Ahead,
I've got myself muted.
Oh, okay.
It's not on there yet, but it will be.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
And
your question, Terry?
Well, the question that I had earlier had formulated, I was like, I want to get some input from you, Michael, on the 5 smooth stones, the 5 spiritual faculties. I love hearing you tell the story and going through that and the teaching, the parable that you deliver. It's just one of my favorites. And as I was listening to the previous caller, I believe it was Renee, or Nene. What was her name?
Nene. She's someone who's done just about every workshop we've done while we've been in South Florida the last, 6 weeks. We've done probably 20 workshops, and Nene's been at, I think, every one but one maybe. She's on it. She's done her 40 days of worksheets already, and she's going into her next 40 days.
Yeah, that is fantastically awesome. That is great. And I look forward to meeting her.
She's also been at 2 different MindShifters and Still Point Breathing workshops, and said if we do another one, she's coming to it as well, and looking at coming to do teachers training.
Well, I look forward to meeting her. And one of the issues that seemed to come up was for her was, well, how do I do that, like with the children and educating them outside of the system? And that's a question that comes up for a lot of people. How do we do these seemingly impossible things? And to me, the answers are one in all of the above, obviously, and more specifically, as we learn to as I learned to smooth out my 5 spiritual faculties, those are the tools that allow me to create my life as I would have it. So that tied right into my question or request that you just touch on it, the 5 spiritual faculties, 5 smooth stones for a few minutes.
Sure. Great place to put it, Terry. Thank you for the question. So the thing that Terry's referring to is there's a story in the Old Testament about David and Goliath. And, of course, it's thought about somebody being on a battlefield and beating up on somebody else. But if you go into the deeper meaning, there's always a deeper meaning, something for us in that story in our lives here today. How does that apply to me? And, of course, Goliath was this physical giant. He was, 9 feet tall, and he had swords and shields and spears and helmets. And, he was formidable. Nobody would even go on the battlefield with him. He was so fearsome. And if you think about your own hostility and fear-based mind, you'll notice how often you make a choice to do something different. I want to live in love. This is what I'm ready to do from here on forward. And then, of course, once you make that choice, that's what you do, right? Don't we wish? No, what happens is Goliath comes forward. And we make a choice to do something different, but then that choice is ripped out of our hands. When the stress goes up and the chips come down, that old dissociated mind that we've talked about starts to come to the forefront. Goliath is just another term for the dissociated mind. It's the place where we've hidden all of our hostilities and fears, everything we never wanted to deal with. And once we hide all of the things that we never wanted to deal with, then those are the very things that run our lives. Because in hiding, they accumulate power. They gather power until they come up to appear to be so strong that there's just no conceivable way to overcome them. There's no way to deal with them. There's no way to move beyond it. It just seems like, that's it. It runs my life. So in certain circumstances, if I do some form of hostility or fear, I do that for one reason and one reason only. There's hostility or fear in my mind. And when there's hostility and fear in my mind and someone gives me the look and resonates that, then Goliath, the hostile, fearful mind, comes up, takes over, and runs us against our own will and choice. That's why he was called Goliath. He's the symbol of what runs us against our own will and choice. Now, you'll notice in that story that appeared to be about a physical battle, and in the Aramaic language, the word parable means parallel meaning. It's where we're given another level of understanding. And so David and Goliath is a parable for a human, or perhaps a non-human, one who's functioning out of hostility or fear, to realize what it takes to come back to a love-based mind and to be able to actually live out of the choices of that love-based mind. And that's represented by by David. And you'll remember David, he was a little guy. He wasn't even big enough to wear armor. But he had 5 smooth stones. Now, when you think about that, if you were doing a physical battle, which we're told this is about, obviously you wouldn't pick smooth stones. You'd pick the most jagged rocks you could because they're clearly the ones that would do the most damage. And if the idea was to inflict damage, then, that would be what one would do. But it wasn't about damage. It was about your subtle, still small voice, your subtle, smaller self taking charge over Goliath. And instead of being a servant a master controlled by the servants in your own household, your own temple, your own physiology, instead of being one who is controlled by the angers, the fears, the griefs, and the patterns of the generations, one having gone into their physiology and removed those things, that is, forgiveness, having nothing to do with letting other people off the hook for what's happening inside of you, but forgiveness being the tool with which you go inside yourself and remove the hostility or fear. It is our spiritual strengths, our spiritual faculties that need to be developed and are represented by the 5 smooth stones. They were referred to as smooth stones because David had cultivated and used those faculties and therefore was able to take apart what we call the non-being mind, the hostility, fear-based mind. When you choose to function out of a human life, when you choose to function lovingly, you're going to have to fight Goliath. You're going to have to deal with your own carbon-based non-being mind, and you're going to have to dismantle it. And it's dismantled through the use of the 5 spiritual faculties, and if you utilize those, then they would be referred to as the 5 smooth stones. And the 5 smooth stones are those of reason, intuition, will, true perception, and imagination. They're 5 things that take us beyond the control of this body-mind unit with its games, with its hostilities and fears, and empowers us to take charge of that non-being self, and where you find yourself in the behavior that you say, this goes totally against my own will and choice. If you want, there's another workshop we do called Purpose, Personal Power, and Commitment. And in that workshop, I define the best definition I've been able to come up with yet of personal power, is that personal power is the ability to be continuously aware of and function out of your highest guidance. And so one who has personal power, when they wake up to and realize, I am love, and okay, so from now on, even with this person who challenges me, I'm going to live lovingly. It's only the person who has personal power that is capable of doing that. Most people having none, that person gives them the look and they're right back to their rage, their grief, their pain, their fear, whatever it is. Goliath is back in charge. And it's a continuous, ongoing duel as to who's going to run the show, whether it's going to be you, the human life, love, or whether it's going to be Goliath, the non-human hostilities and fears in us. You can look back a couple of thousand years ago, you hear this fellow named Paul who does this awesome writing about love. Love is patient, love is kind, and goes on and on about this love and how important it is and how it's the whole key. Then, when Goliath rears his ugly head, when the stress is up and the chips are down, what does Paul say? Paul says, why is it the things I would do, I cannot do. And the things which I hate, I do. In other words, Goliath's got an arm lock on me, and he's got control. And he didn't have a clue how to change that. That's why we've still got Goliath with an arm lock on most of the world. Because Paul came forward with these teachings, supposedly of Yeshua, but many of them were not of Yeshua. They were of Paul. You know? And a guy who, you know, if you listen to Yeshua, when he says, the goal of the work is to be love with God, neighbor, and self. And forgiveness is a key. And you hear Paul saying, forgive so as to heap coals of fire upon their heads. You go, maybe this guy didn't quite understand. Maybe there's another level of it here. And there is. And the level is that of doing the work that it takes to turn those faculties into consciously, purposely, consistently usable faculties. That means they've now been practiced enough that they are smooth stones. And that's one of the purposes of this work, is to give people the opportunity to develop and strengthen those spiritual faculties. And just, you know, give Goliath his walking papers. You know, it's out of here. Your control is over. Does that kind of cover what you were looking for, Terry?
Exactly.
Cool. Any other questions or refinements on it that we can do? Have you got any thoughts on it to share with us? How you've been experiencing that? I don't know when the first time was you heard that story, but I know it's something you've been working on with the smooth stones. Do you have any comment on what you've been doing to bring that about? And the impact you're seeing it having on your life?
Yeah, the primary method that I've been using is repetition. Practice, practice, practice. Which is exactly what in the story is what smooths the stones up. Practice, practice, practice. And even though I've heard you tell that story dozens of times, and I love the story every time, and I make the notes each time, then it's it's not long and it's gone. It's not gone, but it's like
Goliath grabs it from you, right?
Exactly. Goliath steps in, and it's like, well, where'd they go? And then I go through that process again of reconnecting, and each time that I go through that process and make my notes again and write them down and all, well, I see that as smoothing that stone just a little bit more, and polishing that stone and strengthening.
Exactly.
I understand. So it's consistent work. It's like you talk about the shower. Are we going to take a shower today? I think so. Yep. So that's it.
Are you going to wash your mind today?
Yep.
You know. Well, there's another interesting little piece in that a fellow named Joseph Chilton Pierce gives us, and it's either in his book Magical Child or Magical Child Matures. I'm not sure. I don't remember which. Where he talks about the research that points out the common factors in brilliant, happy children, and the main factor in the lives of brilliant, happy children is that they all have plenty of blank staring time. The exact opposite of what our culture teaches. Our culture teaches, get to work. We've got things for you to learn and things for you to do. Whack on the knuckles if you happen to be staring out the window. They called it, when I was a kid, daydreaming. Excuse me. It was not daydreaming. It's called spontaneous meditation. David was a shepherd. What do you suppose? Night after night after night, out in the fields, he does, as he gazes into the stars and as he's watching over the sheep. What does he do? He goes into a spontaneous, complete relationship with the active presence of the Creator, with love. And he functions out of that. And so in so doing, he develops and awakens and practices and uses these 5 smooth stones. And as each of us chooses to do that, these performance-based schools where it's like, well, get your kid in here at 3 months and we'll start teaching them, and they'll have a vocabulary by, and they'll be able to do this and they'll be able to do that. And their database minds are going to be filled with all kinds of wonderful stuff and some not so wonderful stuff. But will they be able to function as human beings? To me, what we need to be doing is awakening these beings and supporting them as the experience of the active presence of love, living in their David body and their 5 smooth stones. Give them that first. Then go fill their minds, go fill their database with information. They'll filter through it, they'll keep it clean, and they'll use what really, truly serves their actual life purpose, as opposed to being great commercial servants, which is all that the king wants, is great commercial servants. Get those kids brilliant and genius, and they'll produce wealth for me. And, of course, the king will scam his wealth in many, many ways. Go back and read Samuel 8:1, and you get to see all about that, what will happen when that takes place. So it all fits together, and it's so awesome when you go into the Aramaic and you see what's really there, and that it's really about this awakening process of a human life, and bringing those practice spiritual faculties that when we've chosen to do something, we actually follow through and do what we've chosen, even in the heat of the moment. And many people, when things are calm and easy, it's a breeze. They have no problem doing it. But when the stress is up and the chips are down, what do you turn to? You can always tell. It's like a lemon. If you take a lemon and you don't know much about a lemon, you look at it from the outside, it's yellow, it's got a certain odor to it, and it's got a certain feel, but it's not until you squeeze it that you get to see what that sour stuff is and taste what that sour stuff is inside. In the same way, when life squeezes you, what comes out? What's the root essence that comes out of you when life squeezes you? Is it love? Is it hostility and fear? If it's hostility and fear, then you have a generational database that needs forgiveness. And the people who show you the content of your database are not in need of your forgiveness. You may pardon them, you may choose to pardon them, and that's nice, but that's got nothing to do with forgiveness. The real forgiveness work is when you start going inside and cleaning that stuff up that squeezes out when the stress is up and the chips are down, so that you really, truly do have personal power, the ability to be continuously aware of and function out of your highest guidance. That's where we want to go in this world. And that's what we want to support people in doing with this work. And that's the whole purpose of everything we're doing. And some of the things that we're doing, of course, this weekend we're in at a temple called the Tao Temple. We'll be doing the Shabbat service tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, at a place called Art Serve. We met with the rabbi a couple of weeks ago. He loved what we're saying, and I spoke to him this morning. We're really looking forward to getting together, and we're going to present. I'll be doing the message, the sermon to his congregation tomorrow night, 7 o'clock in Fort Lauderdale on Sunrise Boulevard at a place called Art Serve. And then next Wednesday night, and I believe it's 6:30 to 8:30, Jean?
7:15.
We'll be doing 7:15. That's Friday night, but Wednesday, next Wednesday. Anyway, you can check it out on the website. We're running out of time now, so let me just throw out some other things. Go to Why Again, www.whyagain.com, and you can find our schedule there. We'll be doing the New Life Expo here in Fort Lauderdale this weekend, and then March the 6th, we'll be doing a full week of free workshops at Unity of Pompano Beach. If you're up there in the cold north, you might want to set yourself a week aside, come down on the 6th, and you'd have a full 8 days of workshops to participate in. Sunday afternoon, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and then all day Saturday, all day Sunday. So if you want to make a trip down, it might be a nice time to get out of the weather. And other than that, Tuesday next week, we'll begin this radio show from 2 to 3. We'll no longer be doing 1 to 2. And WWNN tomorrow afternoon, we're doing an interview on keeping peace in the family with an attorney, and an interview on WWNN in Fort Lauderdale. Again, there'll be links on the website, links on the Why Again website to get to all of that. And we love you, and have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings.
Bye-bye.